You're with Clement Manyathela.
702.
But right now we start our conversation with Moagisi Letlhaku, who is the General Manager for Civic Education Research and Knowledge Management at the IEC. And we're having this chat as we all prepare for the local government elections that are coming up in a few months' time. And I wonder how excited you are about the upcoming local government elections. They're on the horizon. The IEC has been hard at work, laying the groundwork, running voter registration drives, engaging communities across all the different provinces. They're working to ensure that when election day arrives, the infrastructure for a free and fair vote is in place. Right? They've also been conducting outreach programs that are targeting young and first-time voters, coordinating with municipalities. So a lot of work has been done. But now, what's concerning now is there's this new voter participation survey that was commissioned by the IEC itself and conducted by the Human Sciences Research Council, which paints a deeply concerning picture of where South Africans stand. I mean, confidence in democracy is at a historic low. And I wonder how this then affects the elections that come up. So please give us a call or send a WhatsApp voice note if you're one of those that are excited about the upcoming local government elections. But also I want to know, if you are not excited, what's the reason for your lack of excitement? And are you one of those people who believe just the confidence in democracy is actually low, and that's the sense that you get? And why do you think that is? 011-883-0702. You can send WhatsApps as well on 072-702-1702. Moagisi, thank you so much for making time. Good morning. Welcome to the show.
Good morning. Thank you for having me. Happy to be here.
So let's start just with where things are now. I mean, obviously, as the IEC, you always have to begin preparations way in advance. And it's not just making sure infrastructure is fine, the devices, but it's also just engaging with communities.
Yeah.
How extensive has that work been now?
That work is not just extensive, Clement, it's continuous. And I think South Africans tend to believe or have the misconception that once an election is done, we're not doing anything at the IEC. So my role, together with the team who puts together our civic and democracy education programs, must ensure that it is continuous, but it also reaches all citizens. I'm talking as young as foundation phase at school, all the way to obviously people who are of voting age public. So what we do that is different ahead of an election year is that we expand our capacity to do that, because face-to-face has shown to be one of the most important ways to reach our people. So we have to increase the number of outreach IEC officials ahead of an election so that we reach more people more fast and more widely. Yeah. However, the work and all the programs continue year in, year out.
Okay. So can you just explain also just what you do as for the civic education research and knowledge management? What do you guys focus on? Like, what are the kind of programs that you do, and who are they targeted at?
Yes. So we are responding within civic education research and knowledge management to our mandate to educate and inform, as well as conduct research. And when we speak about research, people don't also realize that research is part of the IEC's mandate, because we need to ensure as an election management body that we're providing insights, but also ways in which we can improve democracy and the running of elections. So we set the strategy in terms of what needs to be executed around the provinces, all 9 provinces, and all our programs then get implemented in all of the 9 provinces, all the way down to local offices by outreach officials.
Okay, I see. And over the years, though, has the message been landing? What do you think the weaknesses are? Because we still see a lot, especially a lot of young people that are not coming out in their numbers to register. There's a huge pool of people who qualify to vote in this country, but a lot of them just simply don't do it. So where do you think the issues are?
Well, there are a number of issues, Clement. So is there sufficient civic education happening in the country? Are there enough programs by the EMB and other stakeholders? Definitely. I think that's a fact. We see it. There are people employed to do it. However, we're dealing with an environment where there's a lot of disillusionment. And one of the researchers said yesterday that it's very difficult to mobilize people who think that democracy, there's no point to democracy.
Yeah.
It becomes very, very difficult. So those are some of the challenges that we're faced with as the IEC, trying to engage people who have switched off in a way. But it becomes even more important than to continue the work, because we do not want a South Africa where a small number of people participate in elections and all democratic processes for that matter, because elections are part of the ecosystem and not the only way in which citizens participate in democracy. So do people know who their councillors are? Are they attending community meetings? Are they adding their voice in setting priorities in those communities? So, water is important here, or education here. How are budgets being used in communities? And we want communities to really engage fully, because then they will also see even more value in what their vote translates to in terms of who they've elected and what it is that they're providing.
Yeah, and of course, this is not the work that's just going to be done by the IEC. If we are not going to have success in just getting people to understand how important it is that they play a part, but also in understanding how important it is that they vote, the media needs to play a part. Government needs to play a part.
Absolutely.
And I often wonder the easiest thing to do is to just make sure that this is somehow embraced even in the curriculum. Do we teach children from when they are still very much young to understand the importance of voting and to sort of understand the political system that you vote?
Yes.
And then when you vote, this is the result you get. But also, if you're unhappy about certain things, you can come back 5 years later or whatever. Do you think there's a role government can play that is more, or do you think they're already playing that role? It's through the curriculum, especially the basic education department.
I think there's an opportunity to strengthen it, and we've had conversations with the Minister of Basic Education just to renew and revive. So we do have a standing MOU with the DBE, the Department of Basic Education, which enables us to go into schools, as I said, right from grade 1 all the way to matric, to do civic education. But also we produced a training manual for teachers so that they're also able to do it within the LO subject.
Yes.
So civic education is embedded within LO, but I think there definitely are opportunities to really strengthen it. For example, sometimes a person will say, if you don't test something, a child won't remember it. So maybe we need to put it in other subjects and really make it almost a pervasive learning. So in maths, teach a little bit about counting of votes. In geography, get them to understand, demarcation and voting station and how those are selected. So in those sort of problem solving or examples within various subjects, infuse electoral sort of knowledge so that it really begins to build up for young people. And then they see their role once they turn 16, they must register, and 18 and vote, because you've been teaching it not just subtly, but you're making it practical. I think that's the thing. You're making it practical.
Yes, I would have loved to leave school and I fully understand the essence of this democracy.
Yeah.
Or I can recite the preamble of the Constitution.
Yeah.
Or we need to get to that point, because
Absolutely.
that's really how you get them to be interested. So I spoke about this research that you commissioned as the IEC, which found that, confidence in democracy is at a historic low. Only 17% of South Africans say they are satisfied with how democracy is working in their lives, while 68% or so are not. How do you interpret this as the IEC, and does it concern you at all?
It absolutely concerns us, and it should concern everybody, because what the research also does is that it paints a picture for all of us as stakeholders. So if even you as the media, it tells you exactly where people get their credible information. It tells you what trust and which platforms for media they prefer. But a decline from 2004 from 63% satisfaction with democracy to 17% is very worrying. But we don't take that fatalistic sort of approach. We are not defeated by it. For us, it says you need to do much more. You need to do much more targeting. And I think we've already started responding to this research, because we did receive some of the preliminary research earlier on. And so we've crafted this elections programs very much to respond to this. And that's why we've decided to reveal the slogan and the logo of our LGE 26-27 next week on the 1st, because the research says you need to be out there with messaging for a longer period and not just before the election. So we're trying to respond to being in people's faces, in their ears, on their phones for a longer period to raise awareness about elections.
So from your observation and looking at this research, do you get a sense that dissatisfaction with government performance affects whether people register to vote or not? Because I see in the research between 73 and 82% of those surveyed said that corruption, unemployment, the rising cost of living, crime had all worsened over the past 5 years.
Yeah.
That dissatisfaction, how does it then affect that even people who want to register to vote or not?
It's directly related. It is the reason people are saying they do not register and do not vote, because people are saying they do not see the democratic dividend. They do not see the ROI, the return on investment for this vote that they're making. And that is the reason why they're disengaging. Not because they don't know that elections are coming, and not because necessarily that the duty to vote has declined that drastically. People still have a sense that they must vote. They understand what citizenship is about, but they're so disillusioned with their day-to-day environment that they're failing to connect. Why should I then vote? I'm voting for people, but where is the delivery? And that's the association. And when it comes to then trust, because they've lost trust in politicians, political leaders, in governance, in democracy, it begins to pull down even the trust within the IEC, even though those who do vote rate the work of the IEC quite highly.
Yeah.
And we're trying, Clement, with this election to say to South Africans, come and see it for yourself, because there is that disconnect between people who have voted, who are saying the processes go well, the officials are professional, I saw everything, it looked transparent and all of that. That's very high. And yet trust in the IEC is declining in democratic institutions, in democracy. So we need to fill that gap. And we need to have a combined effort by all stakeholders, not just the IEC, to get more people going through this passage to experiencing it yourself, so that you tell your own story.
Yeah.
Because also misinformation is a problem in our society. People just believe what they hear.
Absolutely. I saw that, there's been a strategy I've picked up over the last couple of years with the IEC, where you try even to engage people that are more influential, even on social media, to try and help you with the messaging. Has that been helping? Because, influencers have people who follow them.
Yes,
but I just wonder when they come out and say, hey, let's go vote. They do a reel on Instagram.
Yes,
do people really go?
Interesting. Again, our research over the years has told us that people don't believe in celebrities, at least. So we must differentiate. And so our strategy has been to use more people who are organically talking about elections, talking about democracy, talking about the political space.
They already started that.
They started it. They have that exactly.
Yeah.
So we're not buying their interest. Yeah. There are citizens who are already interested and have a following. What we do then is empower them with information and give them access to us to ask questions. I have this idea, Clement, really coming out of the research. Dr. Roberts was saying we have a lot of happy voters. Well, maybe not a lot, but we have happy voters and unhappy abstainers. And I just feel like we need to gather around all these unhappy abstainers and just say, ask the questions, because a lot of the time, in my experience, because we do all of these engagements all around the country, the misconceptions are real. There's a lot of myths that people are peddling.
People believe. Like what?
The common one.
Stolen?
That one, but more that if I don't go and vote, they'll take my vote anyway. Oh. And I'm just like, where does it exist?
Yeah, but
it needs to exist.
Sometimes say that they
exactly,
try and manipulate.
Exactly. And so we all need to be responsible about this space, because the impact is really, really, it can be dire if we seek out ways in which to discourage people from participating. We want a South Africa that thrives, a democracy that thrives, and all of us must play our part.
Yeah. 011-883-0702. Maybe you've got some ideas also for the IEC on how we can really get people to come out, because there are a lot of them out there that can vote. Some are staying away based on the misconceptions they have. So what are the creative ways you're thinking of that you can give to Moagisi here to jot down and go discuss with her team? I was actually thinking earlier, what happens when like you do like a big, not party, but like you host like a music show. You bring in like the best artists that young people love, and before they enjoy that show, though, they have to go register to vote. There at the entrance, you must register to vote before Kenako Stadium.
Get ticket. Yes, I agree. And Clement, we actually couple all our interventions with voter registration. So we always have officials right there with the VMD able to help people to register. And we'd love for artists to say, you know what, as my CSI,
this is it.
I'm going to do this.
Exactly.
Because it really will take all of us. And, nobody has endless funds to do all of these elaborate, high impact things. So it really must take initiative from those who are able to say, let's partner. I have an audience. You come on board and let's get South Africa voting.
This would be incredible. Imagine Black Coffee coming out.
Oh, yes.
Zoe Modiga, all these big artists saying, this is my CSI project. We're going to have a big concert at FNB. The IEC is going to be there with their huge infrastructure. Before you come in, your ticket is register to vote. That's it. That would be so incredible. All right, let's go to some calls. I'm going to ask you to put on your headphones. Moagisi, we're going to take some calls on 011-883-0702. Your WhatsApp's on 072-702-1702. Shadi, you are calling from Midrand. Good morning.
Hi, how are you?
I'm all right, Shadi. How are you doing?
Your guest, good morning. It's still morning. Great show, great topic.
Thanks.
Sad topic. I think, the lady speaks so well and eloquently about the role and the responsibility of the IEC. And I just kind of think there's such a disjuncture in her role in terms of what she has to do is to work literally against the current by getting people to come back, or those at least that have voter apathy, to come back and vote. But at the same time, people are kind of feeling very unresponsive, and there's such a high polarization and an anti-democracy or anti-party, set up between the mindsets of people, because it looks as if, the IEC wants us to come and exercise our democracy, and all good and well, but democracy is kind of looking like it's failing at the hands of the very parties and the institutions that the citizens are depending on, and therefore there's a total decline of trust, and they're looking at like, what has voting done for me? And so, the IEC really honestly rocks up at this particular time, asking for people to vote, and so to the very parties that ask for people to vote, they give people T-shirts. They do concerts, and I hear you guys saying we must force people to come into a concert and vote. No, that's not how it works. And that should never how it works. People should take their civic duties very important, and and be very serious about them, but also feel that their contribution is making an impact. And I think that is what is lacking within whether the younger or even the despondent or apathetic voter population of South Africa. And it's sad because I think the IEC doesn't really monitor the role to keep parties accountable to what they say during the time in which they kind of encourage people to come and vote. And so I feel like it's such a huge juncture, and sad.
Hence the need for all the stakeholders to work together. Look, I mean, Shadi, one thing I've picked up is that, and I see this with my own family, my sister or my cousins, when I ask, have you registered to vote? Oh, no. Why? There's no really reason. There's no reason. They're just lazy or they just don't understand the importance of registering to vote. But when you say to them that, okay, what if I bought you this ticket? Are you going to go register to vote?
They're coming.
They will come.
They are there like
I know
this.
that.
Yeah.
If you say some artist who's popular and you say he's performing there, if you want to come to that concert, come. Your ticket is your registration to vote. I'm telling you, young people will come and they will register to vote. And that's the first step we need.
Yeah.
Once they've registered to vote, we'll work on getting them to the polls. But you can't get them to the polls when you have not registered to vote. And you have to be creative around how you get them to register to vote.
And
if it means you manipulate them through these concerts where you say,
words.
come. Yeah, I know it's a bit of, I can use it, you can't.
No. We're encouraging them. Yes. And for me, it's important, and it is really what we're seeking to do, because our outreach programs, and I'm including communications and all the civic education, are about reaching voters where they are, reaching South Africans where they are. That's why we're on all social media platforms. We utilize all media platforms, community radio. We speak in all of the official languages, because language creates understanding, and people feel resonance. They feel it is relevant. We're able to localize their issues in encouraging them to vote. But I don't think we should dismiss the more creative ways, the arts ways of calling on young people, because, as I said earlier, you cannot mobilize people who've decided they don't want to come. So I must find ways in which I can reach them. Once they're there, then we can have the conversation. But if I haven't gathered them, I can't have that conversation with them. And that's why I say, all unhappy abstainers, if I could, give everybody my number, I would, because I want people to ask the questions, engage, let's debate. I love to debate. But if you ask the questions, you get the information, and then you are able to change your own mind.
I think what we should do, in fact, Moagisi, is we must have some partnerships with you guys when we do our town halls, or maybe even here at Prime Media. Invite our listeners who are unhappy voters, who are abstainers, just so they can come and ask you questions for an hour or so. And we take it live on the radio.
We can't
we must
offer them service delivery, but we can explain electoral process and their role as citizens.
Absolutely. Because when we interview politicians, that's when they can ask politicians the tough questions about service delivery. But quickly, Shadi spoke about the issue of political parties and them being held accountable, what they say. I know that there's often like a code of conduct once the election season begins. So political parties can't just say whatever they want. But has that worked, that accountability mechanism?
So we must clarify, the IEC does not monitor the delivery of manifestos for political parties. That is for you as citizens. And again, this is where the disjuncture happens, is that citizens have forgotten, or maybe sometimes are not clear about what their role is. And that's why, for me, I loved our slogan in the last election. It said, it's your democracy, own it. So you need to hold political leaders accountable for what they said they've promised. What we would monitor would be their behavior within electoral processes. Are things being done fairly? Are they following the rules in terms of engagement, so that the process is free and fair? But not delivery of what they've promised, and obviously definitely not monitoring service delivery after that. Our role is to manage elections efficiently, to inform citizens and encourage participation.
But I suppose what I was referring to is, for instance, misleading statements about if you vote for smaller parties, you're wasting your vote, for instance. Would that fall within the confines of like the code of conduct IEC, or but is it something someone can complain about?
Definitely something you
if there's something false that a political leader about the elections framework.
I mean, if it's statistically incorrect to say so, you can complain. Citizens can complain, and obviously the relevant party or political leader would also have to correct.
All right, it's 10:32. Let's get the latest in Eyewitness News headlines. When we come back, Carol, I saw you. Thandi, I'll start with your calls after the headlines. Your WhatsApps as well on 0727021702. Are you a happy voter? Are you an unhappy voter? Are you the person that abstains? Do you have stuff you want clarified by the IEC before you decide whether to register or to actually prepare to vote? Give us a call.
702.
The Clement Manyathela Show.
Let's walk the talk.
22 minutes before 11 o'clock. We're having a conversation this morning with the IEC as we prepare for the upcoming local government elections Moagisi Letlhaku is the General Manager for Civic Education Research and Knowledge Management. And we've been talking about just what needs to be done, to get people to come out and register to vote, and get people who have registered to vote to come out and vote, and also dealing with the misconceptions that exist that often lead to people not getting to register to vote or ultimately to vote once they're registered. We want to go to your calls now on 011-883-0702. Carol, let's start with you in Morningside. Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
I'm all right, Carol. Go ahead.
I'm good. I just want to make just a few suggestions that I feel that the IEC need to focus more in terms of the youth, meaning that they need to start at the grassroots. Talking about people who can vote at the age of 18, high school, for example, getting them to actually understand why they need to vote. Because if you ask an 18-year-old right now, why do you need to vote? They like, no, to choose a president. It's like, no, this is how it actually impacts you, like your electricity, your water, your streets, the crime. And getting them actually involved at that level already at 18, there's not going to be a need when they're already 30 years old to actually convince them. And more, and another thing is that, like university students, getting them to understand if they start voting now, by the time they finish university in 3-4 years, then how is voting now going to impact them then? Whoever they vote for now is going to be whatever results that person that person has actually done. It will impact if they have a job, if they have everything. So they will take it serious at that stage, because nobody has actually asked these youth, what is it that you want? What is it that you want to see about your country change? Yeah.
And Carol, in fact, we've got something we're going to be doing from April. We call it classroom conversations. We're going to be going to schools to talk to them about what do you want, to talk to them about whether they understand even this voting process. And we're taking it across the entire value chain. So we're going to primary schools, we're going to secondary schools, high schools, we're going to universities. In fact, if you are a university or you're a secondary school, high school, primary school, and you want us to come host this show at your school, you want to host us when we talk about this important issue of voting, what your students, your learners think about, where this country is, where the future of this country is going, send us an email on contact@702.co.za. I think that's the email address, right? contact@702.co.za if you want us to come visit your school. But yeah, Moagisi, that's quite important, isn't it? Like, that's important for young, to ask an 18-year-old, why do you vote? And they think, it's to choose a president. And they don't know that actually your livelihood is actually very much linked to the decisions you make at the polls.
Absolutely. And Carol makes a very important point, Clement. We need to listen to young people. I think we've spoken just in general as the world, not even as an institution or as a globally, we speak down to young people, and we'll forget they're not just the custodians of democracy for tomorrow. They must lead it today. And I often even say to young people that sometimes you don't get so lost in that I'm still young and I have time thing, because the future unfortunately requires you to make decisions today. And today is when you're 18 and casting a vote because you're aligned with whatever it is that particular leader is saying that they will bring to you. And that must align with what are your ambitions as a person, as a young person. I want to work in which sector? You need to add your voice. And she's very correct that we need to translate voting into lived experience in order for young people to get it, because they don't always make that link. For example, we always have at the beginning of each year protests around funding for tertiary institutions, and we do go to tertiary institutions as well as schools. And it can be quite a volatile time to go in the beginning of the year, because we are going there. We want to get, especially the 18 to 19-year-olds who are there with their IDs to come and register. But it can also be quite a volatile period. And so we've also had moments where we're in the clash of these sort of protests at times. But voting allows you to have a voice around how budget is spent. And who is speaking to you about young people's education? Not enough of them are able to enter institutions. What are young people saying about that, doing about it? And how are they using their constitutional right to vote to ensure that it translates to a future where more young people are able to access institutions of higher learning, for instance? So she's very, very correct. And I think sometimes also just listening to people, Clement, makes a difference. And it brings them closer to you in order to learn and to be converted. We need to listen a little bit more.
Absolutely. Thandi, you are in Braamfontein. Good morning.
Hi, Clement. Firstly, I just want to start off my comments around election management bodies in Africa. The IEC is one of the best. They do an incredible job. So I want to start off there. They overcome challenges that are incredibly immense. And so I want to start off with that comment. I think this conversation about civic education, while the IEC, their primary role is voter education. But, while we're having this conversation about civic education, we've also got to understand the systemic issue. It's by design that people are not taught civics. Civic education, as people have all as commented on this open line, is obviously something that needs to start at junior school. The life skills that people are doing in high school, that's where this thing is supposed to be. You don't change behavior later on. You develop a citizen from the start. And by design, because if people do not know how they hold their state and their officials accountable, they're pumped. So they can't contend with what happens in their communities. We talk about people getting involved in IDPs and understanding budgets. People don't even understand how the fiscal framework works for local government.
Or how the law even gets drafted, because they will say, yeah, but who decides the laws? But do you know that you have a responsibility to go to the public hearings when they hear, you, before they even go draft the law, because that's a requirement of Parliament. Some people don't even know about that.
And then, this white paper is now is out for review on the local government, the white paper for local government. It's a very critical time to get involved in this conversation because it will change the way local government works. And there's some really critical things we need to speak about there. My last 2 points, I'll be very quick. There's a very interesting guy in the Free State, a young man, he's 19 years old at the time, created cards, playing cards. Yeah. But they are civics playing cards, and he takes them to taverns. So while people are, in taverns, etc., they are playing games, civic games with cards, around this voter education piece. This thing that was mentioned earlier on about, getting young people to register to vote. I think a very interesting case again is Kenya. After the finance bill uprising there, you've started seeing a very interesting thing around how they are getting people to go to it could be a market, Clement. Your entry to that thing is your voter registration.
That's
This is people. This is, the person who owns the market in Bram or the person who owns the market in Rosebank, going, this is what we're going to do as citizens of our country. That your entrance in here is to show that you have registered to vote. So that requires us working together. This is not going to be carried by the IEC. It's impossible.
Yeah, true. But Thandi, thank you so much for your contribution. Incentives are going to be very important. Like just encouraging. We're finding creative ways to encourage these young people.
Yeah.
Let's quickly take Kate, who's calling us from Honeydew. Kate, hi.
Hi, Clement. How are you?
I'm all right, Kate. Go ahead.
So I grew up in a very active house where my parents, even my grandparents, used to vote. And they influenced, that part of me that I need to be an active citizen. And I even took a course in university first year called active citizenship. And that's how I learned about how, to be active and voting and all of that. But as the years go, Clement, I see the decline in my parents and my grandparents not voting anymore. And when I try to engage with my parents and my grandparents, okay, let's go vote, they're just not interested because of, the political climate and stuff. So when I take it upon myself to educate myself, in terms of what political parties are there, but the information is just a lot to deal with, and there isn't a simple platform where I can go on and see, okay, who's doing what initiatives are there and so forth. And I feel like for young people, that's a lot. We're expecting a lot from them to absorb all that information. And another thing, just one last point, is that I was so disappointed. I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say the party's name. I did, in one particular party, I was interested in the work that they're doing, and I thought, you know what, let me go on their website, let me be active with them, volunteer. I go on their website, I put in my details. 2 years later, I've never even gotten an email from them to say, hi, Kate, we saw you got in touch with us. How can, come take part in our campaigns? Nothing. And that was so disappointing for me to say, like, okay, I took an initiative from my side, but the parties they just there when we're voting, but afterwards they disappear.
They disappear. Yeah, that's true, Kate. They need to be held accountable for that. Let me take a quick ad break, and then I'll get Moagisi to respond to some of your calls. We've got WhatsApps as well that have come through as well.
You're with Clement Manyathela.
7:02. Let's walk the talk.
All right, 8 minutes now. Before 11 o'clock, I'll get Moagisi to have her last words in a moment, but here's some of the WhatsApp voice notes that came through.
Clement, I think IEC really need to strategize when it comes to marketing, when they have to market their message. I've never seen a key holder with an IEC. I've never seen a sticker on a fridge with an IEC. If they really want this message to go abroad, because talking to them, you can go to this community outreach and try to raise awareness and try to meet up the youth. But if you don't up your marketing skills, it's not going to happen. I've seen the post on social media, but I still don't think it's enough. I think they need to up their game and to make sure that even on social media, not on social media, but their technology improves. Do not only talk, try to be part of the society. Like I was saying, I need a key holder. There is IEC. We need bottle of water. There is IEC. The marketing strategy should shift, because they've been trying to do this thing over the years. It has never worked. So they should just change their marketing strategies, Fiso.
The only elections that I didn't vote, it was in 1984, because I was young. But I think I'm not going to vote again. Now for the first time I concur with people that don't want to vote. Because, what are we voting for? What are we voting for? We're voting for corruption. We're voting for people who are not serious with service delivery. It's everywhere. It's in each and every political party. Look at what is going on in Western Cape, the racism, the inequality, and everything else, the unemployment, the corruption within the police, the education system, the curriculum. It's bad itself. What are we voting? What are we voting for? For the first time, let us just not vote. All of us in South Africa, let's just sit and do nothing. That's it. Maybe we just need that dialogue and then talk about what is the next government is going to be.
No, hopefully not. Here's the last WhatsApp voice note.
Hi, morning, Clement. I'm one of the 68% that doesn't have confidence in our IEC. We are told to register for voters' roll. So if 100 people have registered, for an example, to vote, why do you print 120 or 150 ballot papers? And we see ballot papers after every election, they are found in private cars or in private properties. Huh? How will you have confidence in such institution? And as long as votes are counted at the polling stations, then nothing will go right. Nothing will go right. Thank you, Lebo from Rodipot.
Yeah, hey, you see, we've got a big problem.
Lebo Batum.
Yeah.
Lebo, yes, if there's 100 people registered at a voting station, people make mistakes, Clement, and you are allowed to ask for a new ballot, but it gets destroyed, the one that you made a mistake on. So people make mistakes. Even Lebo makes a mistake when he's writing a note somewhere. You discard and you get another one. So those are practical things. It's important to count at voting stations. It's part of our transparency because of the very peddling of this. We see ballots in booths and all of that. So it's important to count at a voting station so that when our material moves, it's already accounted for, it's already captured, and we already know what the result is. We leave the result outside the voting station so that even as the public, you're able to verify how voting went in there. So, I would like for Lebo to also, as well as Fiso, who's very discouraged, to maybe seek other ways in which, he can get encouragement and speak to other people who maybe still have a very strong civic duty for voting and see if they can, turn his perceptions around, because I've never seen anything change when people do nothing. I've never seen it. Yeah. You sit and do nothing. And I don't think that's what Sfiso wants. I don't think that's what Lebo wants. They want something to happen, but they need to realize that they need to be the ones that make it happen. So that's very, very important. Talking about key holders, I wish I had key holders here. We've got key holders. We've got bottles. And in fact, we call it advocacy material because it carries messaging. And it has our QR code to register to vote. Remember, we've got our online registration portal. That is functional 24/7. It's even now more simplified. It's cleaner and easier to use. So we encourage voters to go and register online now. They don't have to wait until registration weekend in June, 20 to 21 June. They can do it right now on their phones. Within 5 minutes, they'll be done registering. So we do have material that our officials carry with them at schools, tertiary, in communities that they give out. Obviously, we're not a commercial company that has millions of these items, but definitely we have them. We make sure they're as useful to whatever community we're giving it out to. So lanyards for students, or card holders, bottles, pens, pencil cases, and rulers for school children. We've got a comic book that we did 30 plus years of democracy that we'll be sending to and using at schools this year. So we're constantly developing new material that is interesting, that is easy to read, and it's also freely available on our website and our WhatsApp line. Go on our platforms and you can get all sorts of simplified videos, animations, fact sheets, so that you can share credible information as a responsible citizen.
In fact, I want to wrap up with this message from Simon, who says, Clement, my son is turning 22 in June, and myself and my wife have been to vote with him ever since he was born. Now that he's allowed to vote, he is voting because as parents, we showed him how important voting is. So let's take that responsibility seriously as well.
Role modeling.
As parents. Role modeling is quite important.
Absolutely.
Moagisi Letlhaku, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much.
I think we'll speak a lot. I think it's important that we have these continuous engagements as we try to get people to understand the importance of what's coming up in a couple of months' time.
And if I may, Clement, just to encourage South Africans, research says that once young people, especially this 79% that we still need to capture in the 18 to 19, once they register, they actually turn out to vote. And once they vote, they tend to vote for the rest of their lifetime. So we need to grow this cohort. If we capture this missing 79% and ensure that they register, RSVP for the party is coming. And if you can't RSVP, then you won't be able to attend the party. So think of elections as a celebration of democracy, as a celebration of your human right, and sign up. Don't bench yourself. Don't sit it out. It's so important.
Moagisi, thank you for making time.
Thank you so much.